Hey everyone. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Phil John's VIP. I am coming at you tonight. I am excited as always because I feel like all my guests are like super dope. But tonight I have an old school friend. That's right. Somebody who's been in the grind, someone who I consider a peer, someone who I love, who I think is crazy talented. She is someone who has been in the trenches with me from day one. She knows what it is to put in the work. Personally, I consider her a triple threat. She acts, she sings, she writes, she even produces, and basically she's a female version of me. If you want me to be honest with you. But I want you guys to meet her tonight. I think she is brilliant, coming from the Maryland, D.C. area. She will be guest starring on Law and Order and FBI on CBS. She just finished a play called The White Blacks, starring in the play. And I want to bring her to you. Why? Because you deserve to know the people who are going to be household names. And you know what? I want you to know that you better be here only on Phil John's VIP, where we care to give you the very best in the talent pool. Here we go. So, without further ado, where you at, Justine? Justine, Justine, did you drop press request to join? Justine, I'm gonna bring you right in. Shout out to Mark Lowry, Paul. I see you, brother. Who's else in the room today? Shima Kelly, thank you, my sister. Thank you, Queen, for being a part of it. And without further ado, I'm gonna bring you in, Justine Hall. Here we go. Truly. All right, Justine, where you at? You coming through? What's good? Where you at? No technical difficulties. Not tonight. Not
Hey,
tonight. Not tonight. Yo, what up?
what's
What up?
up?
What's going
This is my
on,
first
Queen?
time
How
doing
you
something
doing?
live.
Huh?
This is my first time doing live like this.
Are you kidding me?
That's why I was like, I don't know what to do. I'm glad you said press request to join.
Yo, listen. I'm glad that I am the first person that you're doing it live with. You
Yeah.
know, because this right here is really familiar and it's really comfortable. So
From
thank you.
Baltimore days.
What'd you say?
From Baltimore
For
days.
real. That's what I was saying. Like,
People don't know that we go back to acting in
in
Maryland.
Maryland. Yep.
Before I moved here, while you were in school in
Yes.
Maryland, and you were in Maryland before you came back to New York, like that's how long it's been.
Yes, and you were brilliant. I was joking about it, but it is the true story that the first time I heard about Justine, she was working on the show, and then a mutual friend of ours said, "Oh, Phil, she's the female version of you," because of how serious we took our craft and what we did. You
Yeah.
know, so I got Melanie, Marie. Oh, good bro, the playwright
The
from
playwright of the White
the White
Black.
Blacks.
Yes,
Yeah.
he's a
So
brilliant playwright. Yes.
thank you for joining us tonight. I appreciate it. But yeah, so like we took our craft very, very
We
seriously. And
did.
I don't think we were back then compared to other people, we were pretty much veterans in the game because this is something that had already done before.
Yeah.
Right. But I want to start out by saying, like, where did it begin for you? Because I know you do a lot of different things. Like I said, I consider you a triple threat. You sing, you act, you write, and you just have that mind of a producer and getting things done. So for you, one, where did it begin? And two, what made you take it so seriously and not just only as an actress, but as an industry professional?
Uh, yeah. So I had always been around. Oh, singing was first for me. So I was always singing. Even my next door neighbors, who were Halls too, our cousins, they were like Earth, Wind, and Fire. So like next door, we grew up on this place called All Saints Street. It's a historical black street in Frederick, Maryland. And so for me, that area, we had like black owned a store, black owned candy store, black owned this. It was just all black and beautiful, right? And next door we had the Halls also, and they were like were Earth, Wind, and Fire. They would be singing Earth, Wind, and Fire. And I used to always want to get over there and sing with them. So I always would sing. And then my older sister, Lolita, was like, oh, there's an audition for this musical. You should go audition for it. So I went. And the first time I auditioned for it, I did not get in. But I went back and I said, I'm auditioning for another show there. And I did. It was called Dirty Works at the Crossroads. That was my very first play.
Was it
And
a
I
musical?
played Little Nell.
Was it a musical?
It was a play.
It was a play.
It was a play, yeah. And then, but then from there it was like Oklahoma in the summertime. I did all those major musicals. And from then I just was like, I was just hooked. It was a place for me to sing, but then I was learning about how to do things on stage in a chorus and, learning about dance. Well, I'd always danced because I took dance with my aunt Ruth Brown, who just passed away last month. She had a dance troupe called Young, Gifted, and Black. And I used to dance with them. So I was always familiar with the stage in some type of way, whether it was in church or whether it was with Young, Gifted, and Black. But this time I was on like this big, big stage, acting in musicals. And then that was the summer thing. And then the fall thing, it would be another big musical, right? And in between, it'd be these little plays that I was auditioning for. So I always did that. And then, but singing was the thing. So I was in bands in the Baltimore, D.C. area. I was in those wedding bands that performed all the, rich people weddings. But then I performed in the clubs in Baltimore too, and in Maryland, Frederick, where I grew up. So I was always singing, but acting was always this thing I was always doing also. But when you're in a band, very hard to act.
Yeah.
Because you're booked. In a band, you're booked. Whether people don't know it or not, but you're booked pretty much Thursday, Fridays, and Saturday, and some Sundays. And that's when theater, of course, is going up.
Right. I have to shout out one point. I got to shout out Maurice Lochner, just joined the room. What up, Maurice? He's another talented singer. You probably remember Maurice Lochner from the Cosby Show.
Yes.
Yeah. So he just came on to bless us. Thank you for joining,
Thank
Maurice.
you for
I'm sorry.
joining me. But so it was always singing at first, and then, but I was always taking these acting classes with my manager at the time, which was Linda Towson. So I would go. She would have these workshops at her house in Fort Washington, Maryland.
Yeah.
And I would go to these workshops, and I would work with like these commercial directors and these TV directors, and they would always talk about the difference between the technical difference between TV and theater. And so I was always just wanting to know more about everything in that genre, acting and singing. And then I was always writing music. I never thought I would be into writing plays or anything, but I was writing song lyrics back then and singing and doing that whole thing. And I remember the feeling I would get when I would go to the movies, or the feeling I would get when I would go to a concert, or feeling I would get when I would go see a play. It was this feeling that only if you're in the industry and you love it, you know what it is. It's this feeling like,
it's like electricity.
Yeah, you're like about to see something amazing. I'm about to see somebody that's put this hard work in. I know what it is because I do what they do. I know what it is, and I should be there. I should be on that stage. I should be on that film. And you start thinking this is where I need to be. So everything else is like when other people were like, oh, I'm thinking about getting married and having children, or I'm gonna buy this house. I'm gonna do that. I kept thinking, oh, how can I get myself on that stage?
I know what you're talking about.
You're not even thinking about those things. All you can see is art, like in some fashion or form. And then I remember when I was working as a contractor with the Department of Energy. I was making really good money, and I had just finished a contract that I wanted to be removed from with Booz Allen Hamilton, another big corporate company. I wanted to just go back to the Department of Energy where I was with, my company. I didn't want to be, Booz Allen Hamilton is a great company, but it is the corporate.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I'm not even into this taking my laptop home thing and working from home and because I'm singing in a band. What are you talking about?
Like prison too. Corporate feels like prison.
And that's what I felt. so when I thought that if I left them and went back to my home base at Department of Energy in DC, that I would feel better.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't feeling better. I was like, oh, if I have to get up one more day and go to this place one more time. And then my father passed away. And after my father passed away, a very good friend of mine by the name of Stefan passed away. So I was like really thinking that life is really too short to be doing something that you don't want to be doing.
Yep.
And so I said, let me just, move to New York, but how I'm going to do this? Oh, and my best friend Kenny had told me about these places where they will, if you sign up for them, you can stay there. It's like a dorm.
Yeah, yeah.
You stay there, you get lunch, you get dinner, you get breakfast. And I was like, that's what I'm going to do, because everywhere I read, it was like, don't just move to New York if you don't know the area, if you don't know the boroughs, the one you want to live in, if you don't know where you're working. So I signed up for one, and they said, yeah, it's about a 1 year, 2 year wait. I said, oh, that's enough time for me to get myself together and get my move ready.
It's always a wait, but yeah.
two days later, I get this. I'm leaving LaFont Plaza on my way to the subway. I get this call, and I see New York area code. I'm like, hello? She's like, yeah, we have an open spot. And I'm like, I'm running back to the office, like, and then I'm sure it's still the same way. You got to go through the metal detector and all this stuff. And I'm like running, going, okay, here's my badge, trying to get back to my office. And she's like, yeah. I said, can I have at least a day? She said, yeah, I need to know this by this time tomorrow. So I'm in my office, and I'm like, one of my coworkers, her name is Mimi. I'm like, Mimi, they tell me that if I want this place in New York, I gotta say yes, like tomorrow. And she said, well, you better say yes. And I was like, shoo, shoo, shoo. So I said, okay.
Let me ask you a question. So the place, when you moved, was it what borough was it in? Was it in Manhattan?
In Manhattan.
It was in Manhattan. Okay.
83rd and West End. 85th and West End. You asked me the name of it now. United Way. I think it was United Way.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've heard of it.
So I came up here and I thought, okay, I don't know where to begin or what to do, but I do know that growing up where I grew up, with the community theater that I grew up in, I was taught the professionalism of theater, right? Mm-hmm. I took voice lessons. I studied classical music for 9 years. So I was taught the professionalism of that. And I knew how to be professional. I knew how to do all that. I just didn't even know where to begin my journey, right? I had come to New York for auditions, but now I was living in New York. So it's like, what do I do? How do I maneuver? And I think my biggest adjustment was learning how to live here and survive and also work. And I knew that I was always serious about this. I had always took this serious. I'd always thought that if I'm a Virgo, if I'm going to do something, I got to do it right.
You're going to do it.
I'm going to do it. So it was never me saying I'm going to act in this play and I'm just going to act in it. Right. No, it was me, before I even knew how to break a scene down, breaking the scene down, right? Because that's my work ethic. Or me, thinking, oh, I'm not going to wait till the last minute to know my lines. Like, I want to know my lines now so I can get settled and I can find fun and new things happening with this character. I was doing this stuff before somebody in the profession told me to do it, right?
Yeah.
But they just taught me how to do it in a structured way. So it happened many years ago. When I was 9 is when I started, and I've always taken it serious. It's something that I enjoy. So if it's something that I enjoy, I always want to know more about it.
And that's one thing I loved about you, because, it's like, if anybody presents anything to you, it's like, well, let's roll up our sleeves and get to work. Let's break this down.
Yeah.
Let's make sense of it. It's never just you telling somebody it's nice, or, you need to go and work on it. It's like, no, let's work on it together. I'm going to go through a fight. And I don't think, for people who come from theater and especially the free space in which we were in Maryland, it was okay to do that,
Right.
So what was the difference for the transition for you from Maryland to New York? What was New York like when you got here?
Um, for me, it wasn't like this big thing, right? I think there were moments where I would go, I'm in New York. There were just moments that would happen where I would feel like I'm in New York, or I would
Did
have
I
this
did I
New
did
York
I move
moment.
back before?
After me,
I came after you.
yeah, you
So
came
you
back
were
to New York.
okay. Okay.
Yeah. So I think for me, for me, the uh, as far as theater wise and audition wise, nothing was different. I think it was just more people were taking it serious.
Yeah.
Where parts of in Maryland in the theater world and other parts was a hobby, right? It was more
Yeah.
of a hobby that we do. We enjoy being on stage, so we'll do it when we're off from work and we have those evening times to do it. It wasn't more of, no, this is what I want to do for
Yeah.
my life. So that
Yeah.
was the only difference. Where in New York you find more of that.
I have
Um,
a Justine story.
okay.
I remember, I'm telling you. Okay, one of the things that I think that we discovered as we were moving professionally in the industry is how what we took as something as art and creative, and how we had to look at it as not only as a business but understand certain decisions that were being made um, because of the business, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I remember at this time I was working for Paul Michaels, the network, and we were going in and we were doing seminars and we were meeting casting directors. And I'm gonna say this, and this is how far back this goes because this show don't exist anymore.
Mm.
We were meeting one of the casting directors for As the World Turns on CBS. Yes, As the World Turns. We were meeting As the World Turns. Justine and sat right next to me, right? And I'll never forget the cast director got up there. Someone asked about contract players. And she said, well, I'm just going to keep it real with you. Contract, we don't put everybody on contract. But if you do get it, most of the people who do get contract are young, 20 something, and white. And, and in the middle of that, Justine looked at me like, and I was like, God, please don't say nothing. Please don't raise your hand. Please don't raise. Whatever you do, dear God, don't raise your hand. I think that's when we realized that it was so much more than just acting. Like we had to find our places as actors of color because that
Yeah.
put us in a whole different
Yeah.
box, you know.
Yeah.
And it was frustrating because it's like, well, what do you mean, like? Because you know when you study theater and you study art and you're in small communities, you can do everything,
Right.
right?
And you're thinking, what do you mean? As the world turns, there's no black people in this motherfucker? What are you talking about? Right?
Right,
And then when you're in theater, back then when we came in, there wasn't a lot of black shows anywhere. And you
no,
go to musical theater auditions and it'd be a whole bunch of white people,
right,
blonde hair, blue eyes, singing their songs for the
right,
great white way.
right.
And you're like, that's not me.
when,
So how do I fit into this?
when we were non-union equity,
Yeah.
and we would have to go sit on that non-union bench, and we would take turns because it was a wooden bench. I mean, how it would go. It would be union equity union performers would audition first. Then EMC, which is equity candidate members, would go in second.
Yeah.
And then, it was like, and then I remember it was a play of, I might have been an August Wilson play. And I remember sitting there one time and like all of these people, we were like, okay, fine, we don't see any colored folks around here, so we're going to get a chance to go in and audition. But I don't know if the memo went out late, but after lunch, all these people, because it was almost like there wasn't too many shows,
Yeah.
going on. I remember around early that time, I remember In the Heights was like over on the west side. And that was just a small little play way before nobody knew who Lin-Manuel was at that
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
That's where we were. And it's
Yeah.
just, it's
Those were
amazing
New
to
York
where it's come
moments.
now.
Those
Huh?
were New York
Yeah.
moments because like when you would watch Fame on TV and you see all these people at those auditions, that's what it was
Yeah.
like. Like
Yeah.
you were sitting in the hallway on the floor, you had been sitting there all day. You was hoping that,
Rotating
that
on the
you
bench.
called in sick or you just didn't go into work
Yeah.
because you had to be seen for this audition. And then you sat there the whole entire day and they said, we're not going to be able to see any non-equity actors today. Thank you for coming. And you were like,
Yeah. Now I know now that I know the politics of it, it's kind of like, oh wait, this joint is already done.
it's
A
already
lot of
done.
this stuff is just formality.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep. They already know who they
you
want.
got you got it, but that's why you got to get in and you got to continue to network.
Network, yes. And then, TV and film where they don't know what they want. They
Yeah.
want to look, they want that originality. Theater, sometimes writers write with someone in mind. I mean, they do it in film and TV too, but, theater, you're like, oh, I want my friend to be in this play or somebody, I want this
Yeah.
star to come in and be in this play or this
Yeah.
show. Where TV, if you're a guest star or co-star, it's kind of like, we're looking for something specific, a look, a sound,
So
and
how
you
was
have
that transition for you there, Justine? From theater
for
to
me,
TV and film.
yeah, for me, it was the transition was more technical than anything, and bringing it back,
Yeah.
bringing it down.
Yeah.
Luckily, I wasn't going from TV and film to theater because I think it's much harder to go from TV and film to theater than it is from theater going to TV and film. Um, but still, to this day, I have to remind myself, especially if I've gone to 2 or 3 theater auditions, and then all of a sudden, in between all of those, you have a TV audition, and you're like, you just went from being, doing this, and because theater is back to in person, you just went to be in person, this monologue, and then you left, and now you have to come bring it way
Yeah.
down for like these 2 lines of someone just being very natural, and you're like, okay, let me remind myself this is this, and you got to make that huge adjustment.
And it's like you got to have this style,
Yeah,
but it's personal moment.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
It's so interesting to me. So, tell me about what's coming down the line for you. I don't know if you can talk about Law and I know you posted about it, but can you talk about Law and
Yeah,
Order?
so Law and Order just aired yesterday and I didn't even know.
How you not know?
I wasn't thinking that it was coming so soon, and my brain was just not working. And one of my friends, Dana, was on Facebook like, "Awesome, Justine," or and I'm like, "What is she talking about? I wonder what she's talking about." I'll have to hit her up later to see what she's talking about. And then somebody, this girl named Tammy, was like, "Justine, I just saw you on Law and Order," and somebody texted me going, "Was that you on Law and Order?" I went, "What?"
Yeah.
I was on Law and Order. So.
But that's typical of actors because it's like once you do the gig, you're off to the next thing.
Right, but see, for me,
You're not really
I had
thinking
booked,
about.
I booked FBI right
Yeah.
behind it. So my brain went from that to these emails from FBI. Like they email you like crazy, like
Yeah.
COVID test, come get your fitting. So I went from there to, oh, I gotta go, and I work 12-hour overnights, 3 days a
Yeah.
week, right? So
You
my
still doing
life is,
overnight?
yes,
Wow.
that's what you got to
God
do.
bless you.
You can
Yeah.
film all day long and
Yeah.
audition, and
Yeah.
so I went right from there to doing that, and I didn't have time to process it. And then when that was done, then it was like, shoo, man, I've never been out to Long Island City. I mean, so many times.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I booked something else that I can't talk about.
Right.
I just got that today. So I'm excited about that. And my friend and I, Brian Jones, we are getting ready to start a podcast. So we had a meeting
Nice.
about that. So I'm excited because, not only are we artists, but there's other things about us that
Right.
are that we like to indulge in. Like I love
Yeah.
politics. I love talking about, um, current events and things that are going on from my perspective,
Right.
which is
Right.
different from other
That you
people.
do. That you do.
You know, I've calmed down a lot on social media about that because I was finding that I was giving that life more life than I was my creative side.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
said, I will not let this disrupt that because that's what it's meant to do.
Yeah.
Right? I
Yeah.
will not let this Black trauma that keeps happening day after day after day after day break me down to the point where I'm not happy. It's not gonna do that to me.
Let me ask you a question. Do you ever God, this is a hard question. I hate talking about this, but I gotta ask it because I want to ask it from your perspective. Um, in this industry, you know, we are not considered Black, right?
Right.
Very, very
Mm-hmm.
difficult. How do you handle that?
It used to bother me. Like people think that I shouldn't go out for Lion King because I'm not Black,
Yeah.
but I am Black.
Right.
I'm
Right.
very Black. Both my mama and my daddy are Black.
Right.
Um, and that's what actually the white blacks was something about this, like people passing for white. I've never wanted to pass for
Right.
white. Never in my life thought about when I was little, a kid, yeah. And I would put the towel on my head and wish
Right.
that my hair was long the way Whoopi Goldberg did, like every child did that. But I love being Black.
Right.
So I don't look at something and go, it's a Black show, but they're not
Now,
going to
now,
consider me.
now, let me ask you a question. Do you feel like you have to fight for that among other Black people? Do you have to fight for that?
Back in the day, yes, I did feel that.
Yeah.
Now that I'm older, it is what it is for me. Now that I'm older and I've been in the business for a long time, what's mine is going to be mine,
Yeah.
no matter what. If someone doesn't think I'm Black enough, that's their problem. That's
Yeah.
something that they got to deal with. But I also respect what Blackness means and what melanin means to certain roles.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm Black. I should audition for any Black role, but I'm not going to audition for Nina Simone
Yeah.
because I know what that means. You
Right.
understand? Especially if it's a
Yeah.
historical figure.
Right.
This is historical figure. I know where I'm not supposed to be,
Right.
right? But
Right.
I know where I'm supposed to be if it's a historical figure and it's Lena Horne, or if it's Joseph.
Paul, thank you for the claps, brother. Paul. I've heard Paul from the Gentleman's Corner. They come on every Wednesday night
Yes,
at 9 o'clock. Paul has talked about this a number of times, and
yeah.
and not a lot of people fully understand. I've never talked about colorism on this show
No, I
because
love
always
talking
it's
about
such a
colorism.
it's such a touchy topic, and even for me with things that I continue to deal with. So like, you know, it's just I know that it's like you kind of have it on both ends. You know what I mean? Like you almost you become too safe for white people, and then Black people, or you almost have to almost prove your Blackness to them
Right,
to a
right,
certain degree. And sometimes that gets frustrating because there are certain roles that you can't walk into the room because the people behind the table are not going to even look at you as that. So
right. But
it's
I
a
think
tough
that,
conversation to still
yeah,
have.
it is definitely. And I think that you have to understand both sides of every, you have to be able to look at both sides of the situation.
Yeah.
If it says it's a character, I'm going to go for it because I'm a Black woman.
Yeah.
I'm going to go for that character. But if it says it's a Black dark skinned character, why would I even think about going for it?
Yeah.
Or like I said, if it's a real person and that real person is a dark skinned woman, that melanin has been a part of her life and her
Right.
story. I'm not going to interfere with that. It's not my business to do that
Right.
because her skin is a part of her storytelling.
Yeah.
So just like Lena Horne's skin was a part of her storytelling, we have to
Yeah.
respect that.
Yeah.
It's the same way, you know. So I
Yeah.
don't want to be if it's just a character, a Black character in general, telling a story, then that's where you audition for it and you go for it.
Yeah. Yeah. it's one of those conversations I hate having, Justine. You don't understand? Like, it is so frustrating because it's like, ah, man, like, is this going to prevent me if me having this conversation with the person
Yeah.
behind the table? Is this going to prevent me
Yeah.
from getting this job? Because
My
if it's
question,
not,
my thing is that I have a harder time with is when I get auditions for a Latino role,
mhm.
a Spanish role, because I'm not Spanish. But look at me and they go, oh yeah, she can audition for this Puerto Rican or this Dominican role, and I'm like, I'm not. But then I'm like, how many Dominicans and Puerto Ricans have played black roles?
Yeah, absolutely.
Easily
Yeah.
went in and played a black role and never said anything. Just went in and played the role as if they're a black person. But then I'm looking like,
But
oh,
I think it's interchangeable because we all have African ancestry,
right,
right?
right,
So but and I hate the fact that we will have to get in, and I think that um unless it becomes cultural where you don't understand, but as
right,
actors, I feel like it's our job to understand. If
right,
and I don't consider it passing. It's kind of like it's very complicated. Like, and I think we all have our own perspective
right,
on like those kinds of things, and I just don't like it when we allow whatever the industry thinks or whatever the powers that be think get in our heads to confuse
right.
us in our day-to-day life.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if we can come, we can do the job, fine. But if I don't want to. When I would mentor kids, I would always say, be a part of the game, just don't buy into it.
Right, right, exactly, exactly. And I think you just got to kind of know, you got to know who you are really in this business to make these type of decisions
Yeah.
and whether it's good for you,
Yeah.
right? Right. Um, Once you know that and you can live with yourself for whatever reason why you took any role, let's talk about any role, then that's it, and I think me having been going to therapy for a while now, and getting clear about who I am in all different aspects and being comfortable with all of those aspects of my life, that helps me make better decisions and better choices.
Yeah.
And knowing my essence, knowing all my different, taking a class in that. Actually, people think that that's like not a thing, but that's a thing.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and writing, being a writer has
Yeah.
changed my thoughts about roles and
True.
shows,
True.
you know?
Yeah. I find myself writing from my own perspective and my own experiences, right?
Right,
So no one can ever tell me that this character doesn't exist because it's a character that whose life I've lived or experienced or watched or observed from other
right,
people.
right.
You
What
know,
you know.
absolutely. You write what you know,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And yeah, it just it's so complicated. Like like people don't know how deep it is for us, though.
Yeah, and in all ways. I mean, for me as an actress, and when you take on roles, you take on an energy that's not is yours, but it's also an energy that you have to share with someone else. And
Right.
sometimes that character's energy, right?
Right.
Whatever energy that you have brought to life with that character. And sometimes mixing those energies can be heavy on you,
Yeah.
especially if it's something that you don't agree with, or you're really not a part of. You got to find something that you connect with this character, no matter how ugly that character is. But
Yeah.
that's where knowing your essences and not being afraid to dive into those.
Yeah.
You know, your ugly, that deep dark essence that you
It
have, that
could
you
be
some people
scary.
stuff that are it's scary.
I told
Like,
I told Grace Byers when I interviewed her that, like, I said I don't ever want to do anything that I can't explain.
right,
Like, I want to be able to explain why I've done it because I feel like there have been people whose shoulders that I stand on who still expect me to show up in the world a certain way.
yeah, yeah, that too.
Yeah.
Add that to the many choices we have to make.
Right. So listen, before we go any further, I gotta get to my 5 questions that I ask everybody that come on the show.
Okay.
And I want you to take your time and answer them any way
Okay.
you know how. So the first one is, can you please tell me, what do you know now about the industry opposed to what you thought industry coming in?
Um, it's really nothing to stress over. It is what it is. What's yours is yours. There's
Wow.
nothing. There's nothing you can do to make something yours except be present and be ready. And if it's going to happen, it's going to happen.
What would you what advice would you give to your 19-year-old self?
Um, don't be afraid. Don't don't hold back. If it's something that you feel you want to do, then do it, and don't worry about the naysayers. Just do it.
What would you want your legacy to be?
My work ethic, that I worked and I put in what I was supposed to put in for whatever, that I wasn't handed it. Meaning, and if eventually in your career you are handed some things, but I'm saying I didn't get it because of my last name relation to somebody. I didn't get it because I'm a superstar and they want my name, my clout. That I got it because I put the work in to make sure that I did the best that I could do.
What brings you joy?
Many things brings me joy. Food, family, good conversations. I guess what brings me joy now is just the simplicity of life. The small things that when you were younger you thought were boring, or what something that you wasn't interested in, but like good energy, with people. Like if you have good energy with somebody, that brings me joy. That really does. Yeah.
What are you grateful for?
I am grateful for family that supports me. I'm grateful for my little New York City apartment that a lot of people don't have. And I'm grateful that I have the power in the pen.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. Amen to that. Yes. Yes. What stories would you like to tell in the future that haven't?
Right now, I'm putting together different stories about my family, because my family has a bunch of characters. And when I talk to people about my family, they're like, that should be at a scene or something. So I'm taking all these things that I've experienced with my family at family reunions, at game nights, and putting them all together. What becomes of that, I don't know. But my uncle, when my aunt Ruthie passed away, I called my uncle, his wife, like a week after she passed away, and he told me the most beautiful love story that I'd ever heard in my life. And I immediately wrote it down. And I thought, if you can write something that gives someone hope, gives someone information about something they didn't know, whether it's historical or something that will help them heal in whatever way, or help them towards a better them. If you can write something that will change someone's perspective on something and make them think outside the box, if you can do these things in something that you write, whatever it is, then I think that you have found what most writers are looking for. And that is only because what you go through and what experience you go through and the people you know and the people you deal with, what you know is not only what you know, it's what somebody else knows. They just don't think that nobody else knows.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Like when you see a film or you see a play and you go, I know that I'm too familiar with that scene.
Right.
I'm too familiar with it.
Yeah.
It's because they just decided to write about
Right.
it
Right.
from their perspective, you know? So it's like, oh yeah. So it's also once you're able to write about what you know, then being able to expand that to something different,
Right.
right? So you write about something that you know, and then you go, oh, now how can I make this an experience like no other? Like, what can I do to change the scenery of it, or to have fun, like the sci-fi of it, or the fairy tale of it? How
Mm-hmm.
can you add this to it? And then it's really sitting back and watch that creation just go on its own. So
It's kind of like uh, being of service, right?
yeah,
It goes from I'm being an entertainer, from using my talent to be of service to humanity.
to humanity.
Because stories come so that we write stories so that we can connect to people and they could see themselves and be touched. Myself is like, that's why I've always been a fan growing up of Norman Lear and his work, All in the Family,
Right.
where the comedy was really situational, where the stories and what made it funny was that it connected to the people. It's not the punchline. It's not.
Right.
It's not. You trying to write something funny. Life is funny,
Yeah.
right? So if you write about truth, if you write about real life, then audience is going to connect to it, and you'll make them feel something. Like I remember Norman Lear saying something like, if you could make people laugh, cry, and get angry and all of those, if you could
Yeah.
have you could touch all of those, then you have, once you endear them to the characters, you can make them feel all of those
Right.
things. And I'm so sick and tired of seeing one-dimensional characters being written
Right.
and them not having any kind of layers that we can see pull back, for people to really connect to those things. So I
Right.
think that when I write, um, those are the things that I'm looking for. I'm not writing what people expect. I'm not writing a caricature. I'm writing a human being who's having human
But I think
experience.
that's what's so beautiful about writing and about acting, because if you write those characters that have all those depth, the actor's going to find that, because that's
Yeah,
our job, right?
yeah,
To find those. But that's where the work on you as a person comes in, right? When you know who you are and you're working on yourself and you're working on things that you need to change about yourself and you're working on your bad habits, or you're working out these things with a professional like a therapist, and you're working on this stuff, you're able to put this stuff into your
mhm,
writing, right? So that these characters have their full arc. And sometimes if you don't know, like the first time with my play, The Iron Butterfly, I didn't know how to heal the main character. And I was stuck. So it
yeah.
wasn't that I had writer's block. I didn't know how to get her off the situation she was in.
Wow.
I didn't know,
Yeah.
because I didn't know how to heal that part of myself.
Right.
So
Wow.
once you start going to therapy and you start
Damn.
working on it,
Just.
you go back and you go,
Wow.
oh,
Wow.
that's what she's got to do.
Wow.
Oh, is she willing to go through this? So then you got to go back and rewrite. And you
Right.
got to go back, okay, so now I got to throw in these nuggets of her making these little changes in her life so that we can see that she's finally ready to see this light, right?
Yeah.
Or does she just simply fall off? But then we got to see why is that? Psychologically, why is that? Like, why does she fall? Why can't she get this? And what has to happen, you know,
How
for
important is making an impact to you?
oh, I think it's one of them. It's 95% of making an impact on someone. I want to be impacted. I don't want to go to a show and just be like this, and then
Right.
leave, or watch a movie and I'm just like this, not really impacted,
Right.
and then leave. I
Right.
want to be, boom, impacted. I want something to happen in me where it's like, that was funny as shit. You know what
Right.
I
Right.
mean?
Right.
Or
Right.
you see something, you can't get yourself together. Like, I'm telling you, when I spoke to my uncle and he was just talking, and he's 94 years old, about this, his love of his life passing away, I just thought I could not get off the phone fast enough to start writing because I was impacted by that. And I know if I'm impacted by that, someone else is,
Yeah.
right? And so then I started thinking about all the couples in my life that are together and still together. Like, how did they stay together? Like, what is their love like? And so then I started calling, like, I was like, okay, so this is that gentle love. Let me call my other cousins, Melvin and Linda, and because they're Bonnie and Clyde. So now
Right.
tell me about that story about why you knew you was gonna marry her. Then he
Right.
tells me
Right.
the story, and I'm like, that's that Bonnie and Clyde love. So
Right.
now what
Right.
kind of love? And now how can I take this and make this into a story?
Right.
And all I can do right now is just keep writing because I have no idea, but just keep writing and writing the stories that impact me, because I know if they impact me, they're going to impact someone else. And they impact me by saying, I want to love like this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to love like that. I want to love like this because that love stands out to me. Like if
Yeah.
your love doesn't stand out to me, there's no need for me to call you and ask you about your relationship.
Right.
But if your love stands out to me, that means you're doing something that I have not seen before that I need to talk to you about. So
Right.
that
Right.
not only changes me on the way I love, but it's going to change somebody else. So do you understand that's how you impact someone else,
Right.
right? Something changed you, right? It made me want to love better. So now I put it in
And it
writing.
can change your whole perspective of love.
Change your whole
Yeah.
perspective from me not believing in love at first sight. And my very first therapist that I ever had asked me, well, why don't you believe in love at first sight? What is putting up those barriers? What is putting up those walls that makes you think you can't look at someone and go, and that person look at you and you have this energy that just goes through and you can't believe that I'm gonna marry that person. Because how many people have you actually heard to say that? A lot of people, and
Yeah.
they ended up marrying that person.
Yeah.
What makes you believe that you're not worthy of that fairy tale?
Yeah.
And then you have to go find out why you don't think you're worthy of that fairy tale. So it's so much deeper, right?
Right.
It's
Right.
so much
Right.
deeper. Like
Right.
writing and acting is so much deeper than memorizing
That's
some
it.
lines and then getting up there
It
and
is.
saying
It
it,
is.
right?
It is.
It's like,
Yeah.
why? And I'm a Virgo, so a Virgo gonna be like, why?
Right.
Why?
Right. Right. Right.
Why?
Exactly. Right. Right. And as a Leo, because we want to entertain, but we want to impact and we want to be great. And the only way you can be great is doing the work of digging deeper. So having the Virgo keep asking us why, causes us to dig deeper and
Right,
try to figure out what's really happening here, you know?
right.
And maybe we have to unlock things that we are uncomfortable with within ourselves in order to make this truth exposed enough so that when we perform, we're giving the audience what it needs.
Exactly. As an actor and as a writer.
Yes.
Right. So that's I always tell people when they, people will always say, well, my son or my daughter is interested in acting. What should they do? And
I don't want to say the wrong thing on here because there's a whole bunch of stuff on TV or on streaming services in particular that are just wrong. It's all
right.
wrong.
I always tell people, listen, it's in Maryland. I go, okay, first of all, do community theater to see if you like it
They
and see if you like
don't want
it.
to. They don't want to do the work though.
They don't
They
want to
just
do the
want.
work.
They want to be famous. The
They don't
question I
want to do
always
the
ask is,
work.
do you want to be an actor or do you want to be
Yeah,
famous? Because those are two different things.
yeah. I learned my all my good shit from community theater.
Yeah.
Shout out to Frederick, Maryland Community Theater,
Yeah.
because they taught me a lot of stuff. I learned how to be professional, how to be backstage and be quiet, how to go to an audition and mind my business, how to do certain things the right way, right? So I'm like, go and do community theater. There's tons of it.
Yeah.
Go and do it. And can you be a course member? Do you know how to support your cast? You know, can
No,
you
no, no.
be?
Justine, here's mine. Do you like to read?
Yeah, that
That's one.
too. That too.
Like, do you like to read? Because some
Yeah,
people don't like to read.
yeah.
They
And you're gonna have
they
to
wanna do
do
this
a
and
lot of
don't
reading.
like to read. It blows my mind.
Yeah. Or go down to Baltimore or DC and do a background acting and let me know how you like those 12, 13-hour days. I'm telling you, do that before you say you
Right.
want to do this.
Yeah.
Go do that. Go be a background actor. See what they're doing. See how they're taping it over and over and over and over and over. And it's cold and it's rainy outside.
Yep.
And so they stay cut. And then you go on your little tent that they have for you. Because if you're background actor, you're not getting all
And
that
if
extra
you're
stuff.
non-union, you're not getting food.
You're not getting
You'll
all
have
that stuff.
snacks.
So go there and stay for 12 or 13 hours.
Yep.
Tell me how you liked it. And then ask me, he loved it. He can't wait. He wants to move from that to go to that actor. Then I go, oh, okay. So next, what you want to do is this.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
first of all, go see what it's about. If you don't know what it's about, I'm going to tell you, why don't you go and sit in and do these things first and just get your feet wet.
Yeah.
Let me know how that works for you.
Yeah.
Then go from there. But some people don't want that. They just think, I want to do it. So I'm all like, I just take this script and memorize it and go up here and do that. No, it's
Or I
much
know
deeper than that.
what I guess, my homeboy knows so and so, and he said, "Here's this man, my homeboy know that person, and yeah, because we went to high school together, and they told me that they could put me on Power."
Yeah. The amount of people that do not want to work is
Yeah.
amazing to me. And the thing is that I'm a
Yeah.
worker. That's one of my
Yeah.
essences. One of my essences is the perfect sea biscuit, a workhorse, right?
Right.
That's one of my essences. So when you come to me and you want something and you want me to do the work or you just want me to give you the answer,
Right.
I grew up in a home where if I wanted to ask the definition of a word, my mother would just look at all those encyclopedias and the dictionary and the bookshelf like I was like, she would just be like this.
Back when when they were purchasing them encyclopedias.
Yeah, and I had to go and get it and look it up. And then, did you find out what
Right.
the word meant? Yes.
Right.
Okay. So you don't have to ask me.
And if you're really interested in this stuff, like you get off on the work though. You
Right. And
get
if
off
you
on the
don't
work.
get
You
off on the
want to
work,
work.
if you don't get off
Right.
on the work, you got to think to yourself,
Every
is it
hurdle is a
something you
challenge
want?
that you
Right.
welcome. Yeah.
Right. And I tell people, if you don't get off on that work, you got to question yourself, is it something that you really like?
Yeah.
Because if you don't get off breaking the scene down, if you don't get off creating this character background on a character that you have to create and understand maybe what the background of this character is, how do they walk, what do they eat,
Yep.
what's their horoscope sign, what's this? If you don't get off on doing that, you got to rethink about in writing. If you don't get off of, I hate it. I hate outlines,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
don't want to be defeated. So I'm like, I'm gonna do this outline. You're not gonna get me, even though I hate it.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. I get it. I
If you
get it.
don't want to do the structure of it, and you just want to write and not break that shit down and put it in a structured, in an outline format. I remember my writing coach, April Yvette Thompson, had to write, watch my favorite movie, and it was like, by page this, these characters should have been introduced. By page this, the protagonist has half fallen off. By this page, the protagonist has to get back up.
Right.
And it was like either by the page number or by the minute or
Right.
the hour of the movie, right? And so I'm watching the movie, and it was Lady Sings the Blues. That's one of my favorite movies. And when it worked out, I was on her email like, oh my God, that's what
Yeah.
happened. It
Yeah.
happened in
Yeah.
the time and the page number. It happened.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's what structure means, right?
Totally. Totally.
That's what, so for me, it was like, I got to learn this. Like, you
Yeah.
could be a storyteller, but when you have structure to your storyteller, you are a storyteller.
Right.
So you could put out
Truly.
85,000 movies and be a filmmaker.
That's right.
And
but you got
throw
to
it
be a
out there.
storyteller.
Hey, good
Truly.
hustle, buddy. You got some hustle in you. Nah, we can't knock those people because those people got heart and they got hustle, right?
Truly.
But
Truly.
if you don't want to learn along the way, the other part of it, which is having a good story, then you're just going to keep creating and creating and creating films and putting them out there, and nothing's going to stick.
Yeah.
But once you got that story down, and then you take your hustle and how you've learned to make a film and put that all together, that's when you're like, woo!
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, man.
You know?
Justine, thank you so much for joining me tonight. We could go on and on. So
I know.
An hour, but this hour went by so quickly.
I know.
It's crazy. But I want to say thank you for joining me tonight.
Thank you for having me.
My privilege. I feel like we got to be face to face and continue this.
I know, because we can go on all night.
Yeah, we can. This could go on and on and on and on. And I'm tired of trying to be careful with what I say.
Well, you know my mouth.
Right.
I could have said a lot worse, but I kept my mouth.
I'll slip up and drop a name, and I gotta be like, I can't post, So, but yes, thank you for joining me. Let's set a date up to link up and chat whenever we will. Off.
We will.
All right. Stay blessed, stay inspired, and we'll talk to you soon.
I love you too.
Have a good one.
Well, take care, and congrats on your show, East New York.
Thank you. That was dope. Thank you. Hopefully many more will come. And congratulations on Law and Order and FBI.
Thank you. Take care.
Good job. Just tell her, make sure you let us know when FBI aired. Don't let that slip.
I think it's April 11th. I think because of I missed Law and Order today, I looked up FBI.
FBI is on what? CBS? Forget it. How you not know the network?
CBS, because Law and Order was NBC, so FBI is CBS.
CBS.
Well,
all right.
CBS, Young Little Restless and Bold and Beautiful. I support you.
Have a good night, everybody.
I love you. Bye-bye.
Love you too.